Alright, hello everyone, my name is Dakoba and welcome back to World of Warcraft. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Gnome Sequencer add-on. Now this is an add-on for World of Warcraft. You can find it on CurseForge, and if we pull up CurseForge, we can do a search for GSE. That will find the Gnome Sequencer, and then you can find the Gnome Sequencer add-on, and then some people offer GSE packs that you can also get. I tend to not use those; they get out of date, and just prefer to get all of my sequences from one of the various places that have those, and we'll talk about those a little later, and I'll post links in the description as well. There's a website and a Discord that are good repositories. Now, all right, now if we want to use Gnome Sequencer, we can go in game and type /GSE. That's going to pull up the Gnome Sequencer main menu. Now, there are two buttons here that we are going to care about for today, just for getting started. That's sequences and key bindings. Our first job is going to be to define a sequence in the Sequences tab, and then use the Key Bindings tab to bind that to a key so we can actually use it. Let's go ahead and click on Sequences and take a look at that. Now, I don't presently have any sequences defined for this character, so we're going to go ahead and click New to create one. I'll name this one Deck Venge, because we're a Demon Hunter, and we will go ahead and save that. Now, this screen will allow us to specify different sort of sub-sequences for different activities, so that when we enter a raid or enter a mythic dungeon, for example, that it will automatically change which spells are cast. Right now, we're going to stick with a single sequence, and we'll leave the default as sequence 1, and we can click on the 1 tab in order to see the sequence itself. Now, what a sequence is it's a series of abilities that are sort of fired in order. We're going to bind this to a key, and the first time we hit the key, our first action block will fire off. If we want to use another ability, we can add more action blocks, and each time we hit the key, the next block will fire. So I've defined 3 blocks here. The first one will fire the first time I hit the key, the second one will fire the next time I hit the key, the third one will fire the third time I hit the key, and if I hit the key again, it will loop back and fire the first block again. So we can start populating this with some of our abilities. So for example, as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, we might want to cast Fracture, and then we might want to have our second ability be Soul Cleave. Now, Fracture generates Fury as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, and Soul Cleave spends that Fury. So we won't have success casting Soul Cleave if we don't cast something that generates that Fury first. For our third ability, we might want to use one of our special abilities. In this case, I'll go ahead and throw in there Sigil of Flame, which should drop a giant sigil at our feet. So let's go ahead and save this sequence. And with that saved, we can now go into our Key Bindings tab. And in Key Bindings, we're going to go ahead and click Create a New Keybind. Now, I'm going to bind this to my left square bracket key because that's not in use anywhere else in WoW, so this is what I've been using for a couple of years for my keyboard key bindings. And then I'm also going to bind this to my mouse scroll wheel, and I'll show you that in a minute, but let's start with just the square bracket for now. And so we'll go ahead and save that key binding. So now, if I come on over to a target dummy, let's find one that's a little less in use here. And the first time I hit that left square bracket, it should cast Fracture. You can see that Fracture has appeared in my spell list. If I hit it again, it should try to cast Soul Cleave. As I don't have enough Fury for that, the Soul Cleave cast failed. So if I hit it again, it should cast Sigil of Flame now. So here we go. There we go. So it casts Sigil of Flame. Now if I hit the button again, it should cast Fracture again. There we go. And now I have enough Fury, so when I hit the button a third time, or a fifth time, it will go ahead and cast Soul Cleave. Hitting it again, it tries to cast Sigil of Flame, but that's still on cooldown, so that one fails. And then Fracture, and then Soul Cleave, fails, Sigil of Flame again, Fracture, Soul Cleave, fail, Fracture, Soul Cleave, and now Sigil of Flame is coming off cooldown, so if I hit it again, it will cast that. So that's the basics of how a sequence works. Now, WoW rotations are quite complex. They're fairly fast-paced and requires a lot of sort of intricate knowledge of the class in order to build a well-tuned sequence. If you are just getting started with a class, you may have better luck using a predefined sequence, and those have been created by community members, and there are 2 large repositories that hold tons of sequences. Let's go ahead and pull up one of those. And this is the WoW Lazy Macros website. This is where I post all of my sequences. I mostly stick to Beastmaster Hunter, Guardian Druid, and Ret Paladin. Those are the classes I tend to main more. You can see my Beastmaster sequence there. I'm pretty pleased with. But today we're on a Vengeance Demon Hunter, so we'll go into the Demon Hunter subforum and in particular the Vengeance category. Now you can see that there's a number of posts here, including one that was updated since patch 11.1, so we can go ahead and select that. And if we take a look at the initial post, we'll see some information about the sequence, the talents that are recommended to use with it, and then the import string for the sequence itself. So if we go ahead and copy that import string and head back into WoW, we can go into GSE again. And we can say, let's import this sequence. We'll paste that import string there, and that should load the sequence into our sequences tab. And there it is. Now, in order to use this sequence, we again need to set a key binding for it. So we could modify our existing key binding, but what I'm going to do is actually create a new key binding here. And this is how I like to use my sequences. I like to bind this to control and then mouse wheel up. And what that's going to do is as I scroll my mouse wheel, it's going to rapidly try to fire all of the abilities in the sequence. So I'll bind this to the sequence we just loaded. We'll go ahead and save that. And let's pop back on over to those dummies and see what this looks like. And so you can see that it's moving through a large number of abilities and firing them off essentially on the global cooldown. Each time, just by hitting that sequence fast enough, we can cycle through the entire list and always be hitting, in theory, the ability we want to fire next. And that is the trick to writing a good sequence. You can see here that we're getting about 450k DPS on this. Now as a tank, that's not terrible. We're also quite low leveled. You can see we're only 584 item level. This isn't a character I've done much after leveling them up, so I think this sequence would do well to take into delves or low level dungeons in order to start getting a little bit more gear, and that is really what the purpose of these sequences is. Now, I do want to make a quick note about using GNOME Sequencer for automating your rotation in this way. A lot of people do use something like a turbo button on a gaming mouse or keyboard in order to, press a key over and over again. And that does work, but you do run the risk of running afoul of Blizzard and getting hit by a ban or a suspension. So that is something that is an option, and a lot of people do, but be aware that there are risks associated with it. Anyways, that's going to do it for this guide to GNOME Sequencer. I hope you have found this guide helpful. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is the Koba, and I hope you have an epic day. I'll see you soon.